What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Scott King. Today I want to talk a little bit about NLP, what it is, and then what are some things that you can do to get some better results. Let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Scott King. I run a DJ company over here in Orlando, Florida. And I also have a coaching business where I teach how I was able to grow my business using NLP, hypnosis, and internet marketers. So today I want to talk a little bit about NLP, what it is, how I was able to use it, and then a little bit of an introduction for you and some things that you can do to start getting better results today. So make sure to stick to the end. So basically, have you ever noticed that some people just have a natural ability, or maybe they're amazing at sales or can walk into a room and instantly connect with somebody? And here's the interesting part. You can ask them how they do it, and they'll be like, I don't know, comes natural. They're just really good at what they do. Or maybe they were born that way, or through their life's experiences, this is just how they were able to move through the world. So that's where NLP comes in, right? It's an NLP person can take a look at their behavior, what they're doing, the questions they're asking, and how they go about something. And you can actually take that, put it on a piece of paper, and then be able to teach it to other people. And that's basically what NLP is. It's a framework for frameworks. So you have to get really clear about what your goal is. Find somebody who's already doing something that you want to achieve, and then you can study that behavior and then mimic and modify to what works best in your world. Now, that's very important to understand as well, is that everybody's going to have a different path. There might be similar paths, but everybody's going to have their own path because you can't be somebody else, right? So the best thing to do is to find somebody who's already kind of achieved what you're looking to do, and then study their behavior and see how they look at something. Like if something, hits them, or they have a failure, or what you would think to be a failure, how do they react to it? Do they have like 15 other ways they can look at it, or 15 other, game plans to, handle anything that comes at them? Because let's just face it, people have struggles. Nobody's any different than anybody else, right? So a little bit about my backstory is that when I was introduced to NLP, it pretty much just changed my whole life and how I even look at the world. And what I was doing was I was, working for another company, training the team, living at my house, building up a company for the owner who was a narcissist. And this person kept bragging about what he used NLP to be able to persuade or manipulate people. And then, I was getting a little depressed because I kept looking at all the different business owners, and I was like, they all had similar, personality traits, right? So I was like, damn, I got to become a narcissist in order to, own a business. And then I found out that wasn't true by, learning, from other entrepreneurs that you could act a different way and get even bigger results. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. So in the meanwhile, while I was building up this company, I was being told that I wasn't a team player, or I wasn't helping out. And I started to get really depressed about it. And I was like, well, maybe I need to see a counselor. So I went to a counselor. You spend a couple $100 every time you go there. I think I was $600-800, after a month and a half. And this person, thought NLP was some sort of like weird pseudoscience or something like that. And all this person wanted to do was talk about my problems. And it was like, well, this isn't going to help. I needed solutions to these problems, right? So I ended up leaving that. And then it dawned on me. I was like, well, this guy uses NLP. Let me go study that, so that at least the next time I'm in a conversation where I'm being manhandled, I'll be able to fight fire with fire. And then when I got a little bit closer, or started to learn what NLP was, I was like, a whole world opened up for me. So it was like a moment of clarity. And I didn't want to manipulate other people. It was more like I just wanted to be able to help other people, or, find win-win situations, right? Or be able to at least protect myself in some sort of conversation where I was doing things that I didn't want to do. And I have a whole book on all the different things that I did in order to stay in this person's good graces, just so I could get work, so I could pay my bills. And the worst thing was I was having a kid, and then this guy's attitude got even worse. And I was like, well, what if this person doesn't give me any work at all, and I'm sitting here stuck and all my eggs in one basket? Well, that's not going to work, right? So I had to figure out what the answer was. So these things can be used as manipulation tactics, but at the same time, it's like this person, you have to understand that they see things a little bit differently. So it wouldn't be manipulation. It would be like, well, if you let me get away with it, you were dumb enough to let me do it, right? So I'm teaching you a lesson. That's kind of how like a narcissist would look at it, right? So Anyway, when I learned what these things were, I learned what the best thing to do was to go out and build my own, because it wasn't like you were going to, change somebody else's, way they look at the world, no matter how much you try to beat a dead horse, right? So I got to a point where I just had to go, well, screw it. I'm building my own thing, and I can't be connected with this, even though it was like 20 years of my life building up this business. And I pretty much walked away from 120 grand. And it was like, well, if I'm not going to keep making this money and you're going to replace me with somebody younger because you could pay them less, even though I trained them, none of this makes any sense. So I went into NLP, and then I had a coach explain everything about what a narcissist was. And then as I started to open up my mind, I was like, oh my goodness. There's no way you're going to change somebody else's thinking. So what does that mean from here, right? So let's explain a little bit about NLP, right? Well, back in the 1970s, Bandler and Grinder asked a fascinating question. What if they could study some of the most super successful, psychologists that are in the town, right? So they focused on three major people: Fritz Perls, who was a revolutionary in Gestalt therapy; Virginia Satir, who could transform family dynamics; and then Milton Erickson, who we consider the godfather of modern hypnotherapy, greatest hypnotist on the planet ever recorded. No, I'm just a huge fan. Anyway, these three were getting amazing results, but they all worked differently. So here's where it gets interesting. Bandler and Grinder discovered that despite their different approaches, there were specific patterns in how these experts thought, communicated, and behaved. They basically created a success blueprint that anybody could learn and follow. That's kind of how NLP was. It's a framework for frameworks. Well, this person is getting success. Let's put it down on paper, and then now we can teach it to other people. So instead of hoping to just figure it out, right? So basically, NLP, right? Neural, how we process information in our mind; linguistics, right? The language that we use; and then programming, the patterns that we use with our daily actions. So basically, if you can change your thoughts, you can change your language, and then you can change your action, which changes your results. So that's why you always want to make sure to study somebody who's kind of at where you're looking to go, right? So that you can talk to them, understand their thought process, like what happens if they, get a problem or something bad happens, right? So how do they think about the solution to that? Or do they even look at it as a problem? They look at it as a learning lesson. And then how are they able to succeed over that? Because let's face it, everybody's got their own issues they got to deal with. Anybody who's successful probably had to deal with more because they were putting themselves out there more, and probably had more success, failures, and up and down, but yet still determined to get what they wanted to go. And then I would suggest if any of your heroes out there have written a book, to go ahead and get that, or if they have a YouTube channel, there's a bunch I can recommend. If just drop a line. So let's talk a little bit about what NLP is. Like, a foundation of some of the learnings is that the map is not the territory. So the way this goes is that we all experience the world through our five senses. So it's not like we're experiencing reality. We're experiencing reality as our mind translates it, right? Through our five senses. So with that in mind, right, people mainly fall into one of these three categories for the most part, right? They're either a visual person, auditory person, or kinesthetic person. The main three ones to worry about is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, right? So they'll say something like, I see what you mean. That means they're a visual person, or they'll use their hands a whole lot. And then there's auditory person will say something like, that sounds good. Or a kinesthetic person will talk about, oh man, I feel you. I'm so connected. Now, with these three, representation systems, so you want to kind of, make sure that when you're talking to somebody, that you ask them how they experienced whatever memory or whatever the conversation is, and then you just ask them to give you more information. So that's what you would do in a conversation. So if they give you the map of the world, or how they see the world, or how they experience the world, then you'll be able to, meet them where they're at, and then be able to pay space lead. Now this happens, maybe with your boss, or maybe with a spouse or something like that. You would just ask them to, explain more. Just remember, anytime you go into a conversation, the person's like dying to tell you more about what they're going through than listening to you, for the most part, right? Unless you have like a super, close connection with like a family member or something like that. But basically, if you meet somebody off the street, or you meet somebody at work or something like that, they just want to tell you about their day, and they're going to go on and on and on about their day, and you probably want to do the same. My suggestion to you is to let them go on and on and on, and then you can kind of figure out what information they want to give you. And then, of course, the more you're able to depict what they're saying using their representation systems, then you can then, pace, lead them in any direction, right? So and this works if someone is depressed. They could tell you that they're having a bad time, and then you could just listen to them and maybe, and again, there's no failures. There's only learning lessons. So you'd be like, well, I can understand that happened. Yeah, how'd you overcome it, right? Or the person, probably someone who's kind of static, right, really has a lot of empathy, and they're really worried what people think about them. So that could be bothering them. And then you could be like, well, give them any example of somebody who didn't care about what somebody else thought of them because they were on their own path type thing. So something that you could use that's super powerful is just ask them to explain more about their experience of whatever could be bothering them or whatever their goals are, so that you could then repeat that back to them, and then have like a little game. So basically, I went to Nashville with a stage hypnotist, studied with him for like a week, right? And he said, oh, look, we're having a little game, but they don't know they're playing. And then you could get better at reading people, and you just go off to strangers and just ask them different things and see how they respond. And that's something else you can practice with as well. If you want to know more, or if you want to build up more confidence, I have some classes down below. I'll leave a link. And thanks for your time. Again, make sure to follow, like, and subscribe. So once again, guys, I'm still learning how these little tags work on the YouTube channel, but I'll leave a couple videos for you to go check out as well. Alrighty, catch you on the next one.